first 10 seconds gets cut off. Even though they might have just heard that, that's all right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nerdy News Live. I'm your host, Rich Alvarez, and we have some special stuff planned for you today. As you can see, with me as always is my moderator, Jackie.
Hi.
And then we have a couple of special guests for you guys. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm into PC hardware and stuff and gaming, and I like to watch movies when I have the time.
Hi, I'm Faith. For those of you that know my brother Garrett, who often guest live streams and participates in the Stupid Mario World / Brothers channel, videos channel, whatever. I'm his sister, and I'm also a gaming enthusiast, movie enthusiast, although I'm much more knowledgeable about the movie spectrum than I am about the gaming spectrum. Just a quick note.
All right, so the way that Nerdy News Live is going to work from now on, I know that we've had a couple, we used to be the Rich Vlog. I can't really call it a vlog anymore, of course, because now it's not just me, it's my friends too, and also we're answering your questions, so it's not a vlog at all. So Nerdy News Live is what we're going with for the time being. So the way that this works is every Nerdy News Live, we'll be talking about 3 different subjects, so we'll talk about one subject for about 10 minutes, and then we'll answer some questions for 10 minutes. So while we're talking about one subject, Jackie will be looking for really good questions that you guys ask relating to that subject. So make sure your questions are about the subject we're talking about. And then hopefully we'll get to your question. And then after 10 minutes we talk about the next subject. Then 10 minutes we answer your questions, etc., etc. So anyways, I think we're just about ready to get started here. So Jackie, why don't you let us know what is the first thing we're talking about today?
The first thing that we are talking about is our full spoiler review of Star Trek Beyond.
Star Trek Beyond. All right, why don't we start with you guys? Faith, what did you think of Star Trek Beyond?
So I thought I'll start with a vague blanket statement of saying it was super interesting, but as compared to the other Star Trek movies, I thought it did dive probably about as much as the other movies into kind of the political undertones of what was going on between the Federation and the various colonies that the Federation does and doesn't have control over, or that are rebelling against the Federation. That was super interesting. There was a lot of... I'm a communications major, by the way, so I look a lot at the relationships between characters. I find that super interesting. And I really thought they did a good job upping the dialogue and upping the character development, specifically between Kirk and Spock, but also between Kirk and the rest of the crew, because really the big focus of this movie is a little bit more of not just creating the world of Star Trek and creating kind of the job of the Federation and what the universe kind of revolves around and how the Federation works in that universe, but also, this specific story of these characters. And in that way, I thought it related a little bit more to the series of Next Generation, because that does focus a lot on the crew and less so on the scientific aspects, at least on a episode-to-episode basis. You get to see a lot of character development there. So I was pleased with that part of it.
Yeah. Adam?
Well, I really loved the movie. It was a lot of fun. It's one of those shotgun on the mantelpiece in the first scene. You know it's going to get used, but you're looking forward to it because it's awesome. It plays like a long episode of Star Trek, and if you like it, then you're going to love it. It was all very interesting, like the character interactions I really got into, especially between Bones and Spock after they land on the planet. Oh my god, that was great. What's your favorite color? We get to find out Spock's favorite color.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert, it's pain. And I always love gratuitous motorcycle scenes. So just that part was amazing. I really liked that. And the combat was well done. And thank God, lens flares have been reduced.
And that is thanks to JJ actually not being the director of this movie. All right, so we'll move on to what I thought about the movie. So with my take on Star Trek Beyond is this, and I'm gonna dabble back a little bit to about the first Abrams Star Trek. I didn't realize how much of a Trekkie I was until I watched 2009's Star Trek, because I'm like, oh, I should love this. I like J.J. Abrams, I like Lost and everything. And I was like, I grew up with Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I love all the Star Trek shows. But I was like, oh, but I'm not a Trekkie, not a diehard. So because a lot of critics at the time were saying like, oh, 2009's Star Trek. Well, they weren't calling it 2009 Star Trek back in 2009. They're like, Abrams Star Trek is kind of like Star Trek for like casuals, because like it doesn't have the science and it's not as techy and stuff. So I was like, all right, well, I'll probably still enjoy it, like, as a movie fan, because, you know, I wasn't that big of a Star Trek fan. So I thought. And then I go into it, I'm like, you know, that movie was really good, but it didn't really quite feel like Star Trek to me. And then I liked Into Darkness, the second one, even less, because I felt like it was basically a ripoff of Wrath of Khan, which did that story a lot better. However, I absolutely love Star Trek Beyond. It's not Abrams, it's actually Justin Lin, and the screenplay this time was written by Simon Pegg, who of course plays Scotty in the movie, and we love him from Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End. Mm-hmm. So, and all those Edgar Wright movies. Mm-hmm. So I think that he is a much bigger fan of Star Trek than Abrams was, and I think that Justin Lin, although I like the Fast and the Furious movies, I don't think that Justin Lin is the most creative director, but he had a really great script with Simon Pegg. So I think that marriage of just like a really
Mute now.
okay. I think audio's back. Is
audio back, everybody?
Looks like audio's back. I'm gonna assume audio's back. Okay. So basically, what I was saying is, spoiler alert. Cover your ears for the next 10 seconds. Okay, the villain of this film is actually a Starfleet captain from like 100 years ago, and then
history's so fixed.
Okay, cool, and that he's been kind of living on this planet and kind of disguised as an alien, etc., etc. I really love the plot. I really love the villain. And I felt like it was just so much about this movie just felt more like Trek. So I still, and don't get me wrong, I know that I wasn't talking smack about Abrams. I really like those first two J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. I was just saying they don't feel like Star Trek, whereas this one feels like Star Trek, and I can't wait for more Star Trek movies now because of the potential of Star Trek Beyond. I definitely think it's the strongest one out of the three, and actually improves the first two for me, because now I'm like, oh, it's going to get to Beyond, and like now this whole arc with like Spock and Kirk and everything has a point.
Oh, they have a series in the dry docks too.
Star Trek Discovery is going to start its first season in January, and I'm super excited for that. So, I guess that wasn't really as much of a review as much as it was an opinion piece on that, isn't it? I'm going to turn the camera back to you guys
Well,
now.
review is of an opinion, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah.
Kind of. Just another note on that. I hadn't actually really considered this until Richie had kind of laid out the movies in that kind of technical format, but perhaps it is for the best that the Abrams movies are a little bit more soft Trek, if you will, and that this one turned out to be less so that way, because I know myself personally, wasn't quite old enough to really grow up with Star Trek Next Generation, and so I didn't really get into Star Trek until my brother did by proximity, because that's how I get into anything. Nerdy is my brother by proximity. But when I saw the Abrams movies, I was super into it because it was just kind of an introductory piece, and it wasn't relying on all of the context and viewer knowledge of knowing what the Next Generation was all about, and it didn't really orient itself to that set of expectations, so it probably dragged in a couple of extra fish in the net, if you will, like myself, who weren't hardcore Trekkies, who now can appreciate the Trekkiness of Star Trek Beyond and further movies.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Adam,
for sure.
You want to read? I realize I should probably talk first because then you guys will bounce off of me.
Well, I will say I didn't hold the villain as such a high esteem as Rich does. I actually didn't care for the villain that much. It was very unclear his actual motives. It was like a battling of ideology, you know, between like Kirk and his fleet unity versus the main villain. What's his name again?
Crawl?
See, this is why I don't like
Crawl.
the villain. Crawl. My bad. It was a conquering of those ideologies, and having them fight at the end is kind of like whoever wins the fight is right. They didn't really delve into the actual conflict as much as I would have liked. I mean, sure, you can nuance it out in different spots, but that wasn't my favorite part of the movie. My favorite part of the movie was definitely the character interaction, the very witty humor that was it
Simon Pegg.
brings is really great. The line that Kirk says about it's getting episodic because they're halfway through their 5-year journey.
Yeah.
And they actually reference that. It's Stardate 966. That's an Easter egg if you don't know. Star Trek began in 1966.
Right.
So the whole thing, there's tons of those Easter eggs, and if you really look deep into the movie, you watch it that second time, you'll see them. That's the kind of stuff that I really like about the movie, and if you like that, you'll really like this movie too. But the villain just fell flat for me. It wasn't Khan, you know?
I would have to agree with you.
It wasn't Khan.
Well, one of the things that really bothered me about the development of the villain is, as somebody who wasn't necessarily familiar with him, because again, I didn't watch Next Generation, was that there was one line when they were fighting over the artifact that's part of the weapon. Oh, and then, yeah, again, this is spoilers, so just another hint. Spoiler.
This whole
Right
thing is
now.
spoilers.
It's whole thing spoilers, but this is extra spoiler. When the crew member who was of the alien race who ended up betraying Kirk stole the artifact in order to give it back to Paul.
We are back. I apologize for that. Let me just make sure that I'm checking YouTube right now to make sure that we are good.
Waiting for the
It's my stuff. It's not his. You can blame Adam.
Adam also, by the way, is the one who's fixing everything.
Well, no,
So-
Rich and I are fixing stuff. He's doing more than I am.
Okay, it says we're good, I think. I'm just waiting to see the visual. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
So it